Hello everyone once again, and welcome to another insightful live stream with immigrationquestion.com. With a variety of visa categories and different kinds, changing life across boundaries, immigration is undoubtedly at the center of the American politics. While some families, we wait years for a chance to reconnect. Others must, have a lot to deal with, especially drawn-up procedures, complex documentations as they attempt to live together in the United States. For those of us and for those who are in the international relationship, our topic for today is Fiance Visas Explained step by step and the steps to bring your partner to the US and what we all hope for. The topic was thoughtfully designed to create a roadmap for those navigating how to bring their partner to the United States. Once again, my name is Kunal Bechu, and I will be your host for today's session. Whether you're really committed to a relationship or newly engaged to a non-US citizen itself and navigating the immigration process to bring your partner to the United States, it can be overwhelming, as we all know. Today, we'll walk through the essential steps and the guide of how we go about this. So let's quickly welcome today our one and only guest that we have, which is attorney Jacob Tuimaualuga, who is dedicated in his career in assisting Fortune 500 companies, small businesses, investors, and families navigate the U.S. immigration. He is well versed in business and family immigration, including temporary employment, investments, adjustments of status, green cards renewals, family based petitions. Welcome with me, Attorney Jacob. We are pleased to have you in our session today.
Thanks, my friend. Appreciate the time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. To our audience of streaming on various online platforms, it's about to get exciting, so get your notepads and pens ready once again. Now, for the business today, Jacob, can you provide an overview of the fiancé and spouse visa and discuss the important difference that it might help couples decide what suits their circumstances?
For sure. So overall, a fiance visa and a marriage visa are both used for the purpose of bringing a foreign fiance or a foreign spouse to the United States. Um, the fiance visa, I'll just start off with the fiance visa first. The fiance visa is primarily used um, for consular processing, where most applicants apply for their foreign fiance who is outside the United States, and they file something called an I-129F petition on their behalf, which brings the foreign spouse to the United States. One of the requirements of the fiance visa is that after you obtain this visa, it's called a K-1, and you enter the United States, you need to marry within 90 days of your entry, and then you can apply for adjustment of status once you are here, which means changing from a temporary visa, the K-1, to a permanent resident. A marriage-based visa occurs where you're already married, so you don't need to worry about being fiancés at that point, but you file something called an I-130 petition instead. During this process, you file this petition, which you can do either online for the I-130 or via mail, and you similarly are going to get an approval from USCIS and then complete a different form through consular processing called a DS-260, and then they have a visa interview there and come here to the States already as permanent residents.
Awesome. And again, thank you for the in-depth response. Now, I would like us to go into the details of the fiancé visa process. How do you go about it? We know that applying can be complex. Can you give us the essential steps in applying for a fiancé visa, from the documentation and to filling out the necessary forms?
Absolutely, yes. I can walk through even the forms as well if you'd like, but overall, the primary requirements are essentially threefold. Number one is filing the USCIS petition, the I-129F. Number two is to complete the DS-160 through consular processing and schedule the appointment. Number three is for the person to enter the United States with their K-1 and then be married in the 90 days and file adjustment of status. That's a high-level overview. If you don't mind, I could share my screen and kind of go over what this form entails, just as a high-level overview, if you guys are at all interested in that. So, awesome.
Thank you.
Of course. So this is what the form is. So these are all publicly accessible online. If you just simply Google or use another online search platform and type in I-129F form, you will be able to go to the USCIS website and find this form. So you want to ensure that you're using the proper date, the proper form version, and then you're just going to start filling out the information. So most of the information that's contained in this form pertains to your personal information if you're the petitioner, or to your foreign fiance spouse. So you don't need a lawyer to complete this process for you. Obviously, I'm biased and I think it can be helpful to do so, but most of this information you'll likely know for yourself. So when you're completing this form, you'll want to select, if you are applying for a fiance visa, this 4A, that it is a K1. This form is also used for something called a K3 visa. It's not used very commonly anymore, but it is essentially a temporary, a non-immigrant visa for your spouse, where you're married to a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is what you fill out, and you complete the identifying information for you and your spouse. Now, I'm just going to scroll down here to part of the information that comes up quite often. And this pertains to the eligibility questions for your foreign spouse, right? So this is where it comes in here on page 8 of the I-129F. USCIS wants to know one of the important requirements that you meet for the fiance visa, and that is whether you're, one, both legally free to marry, and then number two, that you have actually met in person at least once within the last 2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll need to fill out the information here to make sure that you have done that. If you have not met that in-person meeting requirement, you can apply for a waiver of it. There are only two exceptions essentially. Number one is if it would result in extreme hardship to you as the U.S. petitioner. Let's say you have some serious medical illness, you can't travel. Something like that would apply. Or number two, if there are some cultural or very strict cultural reasons that you're not able to meet in person prior to this. And you fill out this form, you pay the filing fee. Right now it's like $700, and you file this with USCIS. So that's how the fiance visa works.
Awesome. Thank you once again for that, and for the insight. Excellent. Really good comprehensive breakdown of the forms for our audience that's actually in tune. So let's go into the next part of it. So we got the application that's done. So once couples have submitted their application, the next big step is the visa interview, as we know. Many couples feel nervous about this stage of the interview. Can you share some of the tips in preparing for this interview? Are there any specific questions or documents that applicants should expect to bring along?
Yes, this is an excellent question. Yes, you will want to bring a number of documents. So once you have your interview notice from the consulate that you're processing through, they're going to send you an email that essentially contains a checklist of documents you'll want to bring. Just make sure you bring every document that's listed there. Most of those documents are your identifying documents and proof that you've met, right? As far as the interview questions go, I would say this is probably the most important part of the process. The easiest way I could say this is you need to just know each other pretty well, right? It's pretty similar to the interview for a marriage-based visa as well. A consular officer wants to know, like, hey, are these people really planning on getting married, or in the marriage case, are these people actually married, right? So they're probably going to ask questions that fiancés or spouses would know about each other, like, hey, what is your fiance's parents' names? Where did you guys meet? What are your fiance's favorite hobbies? Where do you plan on living? Right? Just common things that if you're really engaged or you're really married, you would know about each other. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And basically, you answered, most of my next question that I want to go in detail about. But maybe you can just tell us a bit more about how can applicants, the journey is stressful, number one, as we look at it. There's a lot of information that's actually required. How can the applicant itself handle common issues like processing delays or requests for more information that's required? You did mention get all the documents, but how do they go about these delays?
Yeah, I really wish there was a better answer for these delays. The delays with USCIS and the Department of State, if you're doing consular processing, a lot of times are just out of our hands. There's basically one of three steps that I have seen work successfully. Number one is for the U.S. petitioner, ask for your congressional representative's help. It doesn't cost any money. Look up online who your congressman is, whether it's your representative in the House or the Senate and ask for their help. Most of the congressional representative pages have an ask for federal assistance page in which you can ask for help with your case. The worst case scenario, they say no, but the best case scenario, they might be able to help in getting your case moved forward. Right? That's one action I would take. Number two,
Mhm.
if you have any extenuating circumstances, let's say you do have some serious medical issues or some serious financial difficulties in some cases that requires expedited processing. I would even call USCIS, just call their hotline number or contact the USCIS Ombudsman's office and ask for their assistance.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, there's no way to like pay extra to make it go faster.
Okay, awesome. And thank you for your time so far. To our audience, thank you for joining us and tuning in. If those who are just tuning in on any social media platform, we have an honor of being joined today by Jacob, an experienced immigration lawyer who has done a great deal for today's topic, especially with fiance visa or partner visas. This is immigrationquestion.com, a platform designed to make every immigrant's journey in the US easier. Ask your questions, ask any immigration question for free in any language. You'll be connected to a verified attorney who will help you through the legal process or give you legal guidance. Even better, you may secure yourself a discreet free initial consultation with an immigration attorney of your choice. Head over again to www.immigrationquestion.com and sign up today. Before we go into the Q&A, let's talk about more about the recent policy changes, Jacob. We know that, excuse me, that immigration policies are dynamic, and essential to different applicants throughout the journey. So to stay formed, for them to be informed throughout, the journey stuff as well as updates. Are there any recent changes or trends that's affecting fiance visa applications that our audience should be aware of, or to be looking forward to, or to be, be prepared should they go through their administration process?
It's a really good question. There are a couple of ways to stay updated. You can subscribe to USCIS to have
Mhm.
their policy manual updates by inputting your email on their website. As far as trends that I'm personally seeing, I actually think fiance visas are processing more quickly right now than they were last year.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Last year and the year before that, I had several fiance visas that took more than 15 months for them to process. And this year, we had several processed between like 4 and 6 months. Now, if you
Mhm.
look online, because USCIS does publish their estimated case processing times, it says it can take between 9 and 13, depending on the location. But those processing times are faster than marriage based visas right now.
Mhm. Okay, thank you once again. So, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is now open for the Q&A. Please feel free to type your questions in the chat box. We will address any possible questions that you have. If you want to call us live as well, you're welcome to do so. Ask your question directly. The number again is 516-703 3483. So we do have one question already that popped through. My fiance is a permanent resident. Does this change the process for me getting a fiance visa compared to if they are a citizen?
Yeah, hi there, Ewan. This is a great question. I'm sorry. It's unfortunately a permanent resident cannot file the K-1. They must be a U.S. citizen in order to file that. Now, if you get married, they can file an I-130, the green card petition for you through the F2A category, but it will take longer to process than if they were a U.S. citizen. So
Thank
yeah, if I
you.
were you, I'd just have them apply for U.S. citizenship if they're eligible, and then you
Mhm.
could do the K-1 or you do that other path I just mentioned. Good question.
Thank you there, Jacob. So the next question is from Aliya Khan. My fiance has a tourist visa. Can he come to the US and adjust his status if we get married here?
Oh man, this is kind of a hairy question, my friend. This is a little tricky. Okay, so truthfully, yes, if your fiance does come here as a tourist and you get married here, you can apply for adjustment of status. However, this is not without some level of risk. The risk comes because if you plan on getting married through the use of a tourist visa, and that is your intent, then you have technically violated the terms of your non immigrant visa, and you could technically be refused at the border. I'm going to give you a sad story that I had about 5 or 6 years ago. I had a woman call me in tears because She was coming from a Latin American country to come and marry her boyfriend in Ohio. They had WhatsApp messages or Facebook messages. And at the port of entry, the officer searched her phone and realized that she was coming here to get married with a tourist visa. And so they did deport her, and she was unable to return to the States for 5 years. And you had to apply for a waiver to get that lifted. So it is not without its risk.
Awesome, thank you. So we have another question by Alejandro. My fiance and I have been together for 2.5 years, but we haven't met in person yet. Can we still apply?
Good question, Alejandro. So you could only apply then if one of the two in-person meeting exceptions apply. So number one is if it would result in extreme hardship to you, or number two, if there is a very strict social custom that would prevent you from doing so. So if you have like some serious medical issue that would prevent you from traveling, or some other compelling reason, then perhaps. Otherwise, you should buy flights and try and see each other.
Okay, so we got a question from Sonia Casey. What
Hmm.
happens if the couple has children? Can they be included in the fiance visa process?
Yes, it's a great question. Yes, your children can be included. That is one of the benefits of applying for a fiance visa, is that they will be your derivatives. So if you file the I-129F and you name your fiance's children on that, they will also be beneficiaries. You will need to complete separate DS-160s for them, but they will also be included. So that is quite a bit different than if you apply for a marriage-based visa. Let's say your petitioner is a U.S. citizen and you have a foreign spouse and they have
Mhm.
children. You have to petition them entirely separately. You can't include them under the same one.
All right, thank you for that, Jacob. This next question is on the film. How much income does your fiance need to show or to sponsor me? Thanks.
This is a really good question. I'm going to just
Yeah,
show you a form. I'm going to share my screen with you for you to see how
awesome.
this is done. All right. So the easiest way to figure out what the amount of income will be is by looking up the I-864 HHS poverty guidelines. So again, just Googling or looking up on the USCIS website, and you can go here to your location where you live and look
Mhm.
what the minimum guideline is. Okay, so I'm going to click on this. Let's just assume you live in California. Okay, you need to look up what your household size is, assuming that let's say that you're the petitioner and you need to calculate your household size. So you need to count yourself and all of your dependents who are coming. So let's say it's just you and your fiance. So that would
Mhm.
be a household of two. Um, unless you are a sponsor who's on active duty in the military, you're going to follow this 125%. So you would need to show that you make at least $25,550 in this example with two people. These guidelines change every year, though, so you need to make sure you keep up with the latest ones.
Awesome, thank you. So we have a next question that populated. This is from Renak. Is it possible for fiance to work in the US once they arrive on a K1 visa?
Another great question. So yes, the K1 allows you to work because you can apply for adjustment of status. So once your fiance lands and you marry here in the States, you can file something called a Form I-485, which is a application to transition from a K1 to a permanent resident. As a part of that form, you can include a work authorization permit request. That's Form I-765. So you just fill it out as a part of your adjustment of status application and include it in your submission to USCIS, and then your fiance will get a work permit. That will be good for 5 years. So even if it takes forever for them to get their green card, which shouldn't happen, but if it does, they're going to have work authorization for a while.
Awesome, thank you. So we have a question from Louise. My fiance has a kid from another relationship. Can she come with a child, or would they need like separate visas?
It's a great question. So they get separate visas, but they can be included under the same petition. So you're going to still file the same I-129F, just one that includes both your fiance and her child, as long as that child is under age 21. That's very important. Or under age that you guys are going to get married before they're under 18. That's another important part.
Okay.
But you're going to file that application. You do need to submit separate DS-160s for the child as well. So they will need a separate visa, but it's just going to be under the same petition.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Right, question from Fatima. Are there any red flags that can make our visa application to be denied? How can we avoid these?
Yeah, this is a really good question. And honestly, there's probably too many for us to name, but I will give you just a couple um, to keep an eye out for. So, the biggest red flags I would say are ones that suggest that your engagement are not legitimate. So, for example, if you're not prepared during the interview, you don't know each other well at all. It's not going to
Mhm,
go well. Another thing would be if there are another common red flag, unfortunately, I just have to say this. If you have any criminal history, whether it is the petitioner or the beneficiary, it can also be problematic. Those are common red flags that come up. I would say, though, if you're like, if it really is a legitimate relationship that you guys are engaged and you really are going to get married, you have proof of your relationship. So you have text messages between each other, pictures together, you've met in
mhm.
person, you've got good letters of recommendation, you're pretty unlikely to have issues. Um, yeah, hope that was helpful.
Certainly it was. And again, thank you, for answering it so comprehensively across. Well, that's an amazing way to end today's session. We're mindful of the time once again. Jacob, thank you for joining us once again on this session, and to our wonderful audience, to sending those questions through. A special thank you to you once again for sharing your time and your expertise. We cannot wait to have you back in our next show. We hope that the webinar answered most of the questions or pressing questions that I'll say regarding fiance visa and the steps to bring your partner over to the US. Um, if you have missed the session, you can visit our website on immigrationquestion.com to connect with an experienced immigration attorney who can guide you through the unique process or situation that you currently face. Once again, I'll stress the point, if you missed a part of today's session and would love to listen again to the live stream being recorded, you can do so on Spotify. Simply reach or search Borderless Talk by immigrationquestion.com and listen to today's session and any previous ones on the go. Asking you immigration questions, it gets a bit more easier and a lot easier, as I mentioned on our previous session as last week as well. This is due to our mobile app that we have. And once again, you can do it on immigrationquestion.com. It's a mobile app that can be downloaded for both Google Play Store as well as the Apple Play Store itself. You can now ask your questions on the go, claim leads as an attorney, maintain engagement on the community forum, and that's really amazing. So download it now, do not hesitate. It creates the magic. So see each one of you guys on our next session at the same time, same place next week. So stay tuned. And once again, Jacob, thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of the day and an awesome weekend to our audience.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Indeed.